In the mid-1980s, a philosopher and theologian by the name of Dr. James Carse defined these two types of games, finite games and infinite games. A finite game is defined as known players, fixed rules, and an agreed-upon objective. Football, baseball. There's always a beginning, middle, and an end, and if there's a winner, then necessarily there have to be losers. Then you have infinite games. Infinite games are defined as known and unknown players, which means you don't necessarily know who all the other players are, and new players can join at any time. The rules are changeable, which means every player can play however they want, and the objective is to perpetuate the game, to stay in the game as long as possible. We are players in infinite games every day of our lives, whether we know it or not. There's no such thing as winning education. You can come in first for the finite amount of time you're at school, where we agree upon the time frame and the metrics, grades, but nobody wins education, though we can keep learning for our whole lives. Nobody wins healthcare. Nobody wins global politics. And there's definitely no such thing as winning business. But if we listen to the language of so many leaders, it becomes abundantly clear that they don't actually know the game that they're playing in. They talk about being number one, or being the best, or beating their competition.
Uh-oh, we said that too.
Yeah.
Oops.
Oops,
okay.
But the question is based on what? Based upon what agreed upon objectives, metrics, and timeframes. Clearly, your competitors, the other players in the game, haven't agreed to your metrics, timeframes, or objectives. Nobody's agreed what winning looks like, and so this is a problem. Because when we play with a finite mindset in an infinite game, when we play to win in a game that has no finish line, there are some very predictable and consistent outcomes. The big ones are the decline of trust, the decline of cooperation, and actually the decline of innovation. And so there's a great irony in companies that are trying to reinvent themselves and stay ahead of the curve, while simultaneously trying to beat their competition and win and be the best. Those two are incongruent, right? I'll give you an example, a silly example. When Circuit City went bankrupt, Best Buy didn't win anything, right? It didn't win anything. Their number one competitor fell out of the game because they ran out of the will and resources to play, but Best Buy didn't win anything. They had to keep playing. In fact, with the rise of Amazon, the entire rules of how they played the game had to change. And so the reality is when you play with an infinite mindset, you play not to beat anyone, but ultimately you play, the only true competitor is yourself, which is how do we make our products better this year than they were last year? How do we make our services better this year than they were last year? How do we make our culture stronger this year than it was last year? And it's a game of constant improvement, but there's no such thing as winning.
But you mentioned 5 attributes, right, of creating that infinite mindset, because I'm sure that is something that we have to practice.
Yeah.
Right? What are the 5 attributes?
So to convert to an infinite mindset or embrace an infinite mindset, as you said, there are 5 practices. Number one is you have to advance a just cause. The second one is build trusting teams. The third is study your worthy rivals. Your fourth is have a capacity for existential flexibility. And the final one is to have the courage to lead. So really quickly, a lot of companies have vision statements or mission statements, and they usually sound similar, and they're not helpful. To be the best.
Damn.
To be the most respected, the most preeminent, blah, 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 the highest value for our clients, blah, blah, blah.
Can you shut down the monitors, please? Shut down the slides.
It's very nice being here. Thank you very much. And it's not wrong. It's just not useful. Like nobody.
Oh man.
No, no one in your practice, a total of 0, is waking up every morning and thinking to themselves, today's the day, like I'm going to advance the mission, right?
He said that yesterday.
So when I talk about advancing a just cause, right? A just cause is something a lot more idealistic. It's a statement of the world that you wish, the way the world you wished it worked. It's the world that you imagine. Like we imagine a world, as PwC, we imagine a world in which, and then we devote our practice, we devote our energy, we devote our resources to advance towards that cause, and we're going to bring our clients with us. The work that we do takes us closer to that cause. So I'll give you an example. So my just cause, our organization's just cause, we imagine a world, so you can see there's that forward thinking, which, as an aside, which is why we call it vision, is because you have to be able to see it, right? So we imagine a world in which the vast majority of people wake up every single morning inspired, feel safe wherever they are, and end the day fulfilled by the work that they do. That is our cause, and it is a cause so just that we would be willing to sacrifice in order to advance closer towards that ideal. We will never get there. It is an ideal.
Okay.
And you can look at organizations or leaders that have made profound impact in their industries or in the world. You'll see these just causes, whether it's all men are created equal, right? It's a just cause, imperfect in its own way, but you can see a nation striving. I have a dream, literally, imagining that one day little black children will hold hands on the playground with little white children, imperfect in its own, in reality, but you can see a nation striving. When Apple and Steve Jobs used to talk about empowering individuals to stand up to Big Brother, you can see the attraction to the personal computer because it literally gives power to an individual to compete against a corporation. Imperfect, but a striving. And all of these things become striving that become incredibly inspiring for a workforce because they feel like they're contributing to something bigger than themselves. But when you think about innovation, if you say, provide greater value for our clients, and it's not wrong. I have to stress, it's not wrong. But when you say innovate around that, the innovation tends to be more features and benefits. It tends to be tweaking and efficiencies. When you say be the best, I don't even know how you innovate around that, right? You can't say somebody, you know, innovate so we're better. But when you say innovate a way to advance this, the ideas can come from anywhere inside the organization, and the ideas tend to be a lot bigger.
Okay.
So it's not that those things are wrong. It's that what I'm offering are a clearer path to embracing an infinite mindset.
Okay.
Right? It's not that the other doesn't work, it doesn't have value. It just has less value in the infinite game. Okay. Right?
So that was the first one, just cause.
Just cause, advancing a just cause.
Advancing,
right? You'll never achieve it. It's an idealized state. And even when you hear me say it, when you hear people say it, it sort of feels like it has more gravitas. And it's proprietary. You know, it doesn't sound like every other company's mission statement.
Okay.
Then I talk about building trusting teams, which is essential. Because especially when you're operating at scale, 300,000 people, trust is absolutely essential. Senior leadership has to trust middle management, that has to trust the front line, that they not only understand what we're here to do, but I don't have to micromanage you, right? One of my favorite examples of what a trusting team looks like, it happened a few years ago when I was on a business trip. I went to Las Vegas, and they were very nice to put me up at the Four Seasons out there.
Are you sure it was business? Yeah?
It's a lovely hotel.
Okay. Just asking.
What's that?
It was for business, right?
It was for business, yes.
Just asking, yeah.
It was a real business trip. And they happened to have a coffee bar in the lobby of the Four Seasons in Vegas. And so one afternoon, I went and bought myself a cup of coffee. And the barista working that day was a kid named Noah. Noah was funny and charming and engaging, and I spent far too long buying a cup of coffee because I just so enjoyed talking to Noah. So as is my nature, I asked Noah, do you like your job? And without skipping a beat, Noah said, I love my job. Now, in my line of work, that's significant. Like is rational. I like the people, I like the work, you know, I get paid well, I like my job. Love is emotional. It's a higher order connection, right? Like, do you love your wife? I like her a lot, right? It's clearly a different standard, right? Yeah. So when Noah said, I love my job, my ears perked up. This kid has an emotional connection to his work. So immediately I followed up and said, tell me specifically what the Four Seasons is doing that you would say to me you love your job. And again, without skipping a beat, Noah said, throughout the day, managers will walk past me and ask me how I'm doing, ask me if there's anything that I need to do my job better, not just my manager, any manager. And then he said, I also work at another hotel. And there the managers walk past us and catch us when we do something wrong. There, the managers are always trying to drive performance and make sure we hit our numbers. He said, there, I'd like to keep my head below the radar, get through the day, and just collect my paycheck. Only at the Four Seasons do I feel I can be myself. Now, this is the exact same human being working at 2 different companies, and yet our experience of him will be profoundly different, not because of him, but because of the leadership environment in which he works. You know, I get this question all the time. You know, Simon, how do we get the most out of our people? People are not a towel that you wring them out to see how much you can get out of them. You know, it's
That's a good one, man.
It's a flawed question. The question is, how do we create an environment in which our people can work at their natural best? And that is the art of leadership. It's creating an environment in which relationships can thrive, in which trust can thrive. And we all know what it feels like to be on a trusting team, right? It means that we feel psychologically safe enough to raise our hand and say, I made a mistake, or I need help, or I'm having trouble at home and it's affecting my work, or I'm scared, or I don't know what to do. Without any fear of humiliation or retribution, but rather to say these things with the absolute confidence that someone on our team will rush to support us. Unfortunately, we also all know what it feels like not to work on a trusting team, where admitting any of those things could hurt your chances of promotion, could hurt your chances of, you could be humiliated. And so when we work on teams where leadership is creating an environment where trust is at a premium, we force our people to come to work and lie, hide, and fake, where they're pretending that they've made no mistakes. They're lying, hiding, and faking, and eventually things will crack and things will eventually break. And when you talk about reinvention and you talk about innovation and you talk about challenging the status quo or whatever it is, necessarily there's risk, and necessarily there are mistakes, and necessarily there's stupid ideas. And you have to create an environment in which that's good. The alternative is everybody playing it safe, which is not the way that leads to vast or significant improvement. So this is absolutely essential if you want to play in the infinite game, because ultimately every single person here will leave the organization or die at some point, you know, circle of life, and you'll be replaced by new people. And so the opportunity is to create a company with vision and teams that can thrive and outlast every single person here. And then that is part of the responsibility of leadership, is to leave the organization in better shape than you found it, which means grooming the next generation. Like, one of the primary responsibilities of any leader is to make more leaders.